Hello, my name is Amanda. Welcome to my channel. And today we have the privilege of talking to Laurie, and she's going to share a little bit about her out of body spiritual experiences, as well as what she has learned about signs, synchronicities, and teach us a few things to help us get some momentum when it comes to following the signs. So, Laurie, welcome.
Thank you, Amanda. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, my pleasure. So I think we can jump right in. So I just want you to start off by telling us a little bit about your life before spirituality, before being open to the signs, and yeah, how were things before? What was life like?
Well, I think I was just kind of a normal American girl, growing up in Iowa and Kansas. We weren't really a church family. We would be a church family when we would visit our grandparents. So that was my exposure to church. And so I was pretty much agnostic. Like I didn't know what I believed. I believed that there was something bigger than us, but I didn't necessarily know for sure. I wasn't convinced that there was something after you died. I just didn't know. And for some reason at 30, something just kind of opened up. I think I heard somebody say they were talking about people that came before you, like people that you admired. And I remembered thinking about my great grandpa and my grandfather, who were very, very intelligent people. And I knew that they believed in God. And so it made me re examine things. And I decided I needed to go to church. And I picked the closest church to my house, which happened to be a Baptist church. And I got very, I don't know, like disenchanted over about a 3-year period when all they talked about was the wrath of God and how all these other religions were wrong and theirs was the only right view. And it was all about the rapture was coming. It was all about fear. And that didn't feel right to me. I felt like God was supposed to be love and not feared. And so I eventually left the church. And then I encountered somebody who really facilitated a quickening in my awakening. I had started reading some books about Edgar Casey and about multiple lives, Dr. Brian Weiss, mediums. And then all of a sudden, I encounter this man who is spiritually deeper than anybody I've ever met. And that relationship really opened me up like,
Okay. And I love that because sometimes we get to meet people in our life and just their presence or their vibration changes everything. Can you just comment a bit about that part?
hmm. I remember, so he was the lead guitarist of the band Starship, and I met him because he had come to my town to do a concert, and my son was learning to play guitar, and I wound up getting backstage passes, and I looked him up before the show, so I knew a little bit about him, and I knew what questions to ask him, and he could tell that I had researched him, and so he opened up and said, if you have questions, if your son has questions, you can email me. What I didn't know was that when I had passed him when he was sitting on the sidewalk, he had just said a prayer and asked for a beautiful woman to be sent into his life. And I walked by and he felt like it was love at first sight. And I had no idea. And I was married, not in a particularly happy relationship. I knew that when my kids were going to be older, I would exit that relationship, but I certainly wasn't open to being in another relationship. And so we began this correspondence, and his vibration was something I couldn't stay away from. I knew it was dangerous because I was just trying to have this friendship and I knew I could feel this attraction. What I didn't know is that he understood that this was a soul contract and he knew that we had been together in other lifetimes and he felt drawn to me for a different reason than I felt drawn to him. Like it was almost predestined that we were to meet at this time to help me with my soul growth and everything, but I didn't understand it. I just felt it.
Okay. And so what would you share from just your own perspective and this experience when it comes to like twin flames or soulmates or any of those things? Because you're an experiencer. What would you say to those terms?
Okay. I had not heard of twin flames except for in Edgar Casey's readings. And twin flames, I feel like in the last 5 years, maybe 6 years, has gotten a lot of attention. I was told well before this, like I'm talking about, Mark's been gone for like 12 years now, and I'll get to that later, but maybe 9 or 10 years ago, somebody told me that he was a twin flame. And when they said that, that resonated on a deep level. What I've come to understand, when a relationship is really meant to be, it doesn't matter. The people will find each other. If you're meant to meet somebody, even if you stayed in one place, like at the bottom of it, like sitting underneath a tree your whole life, that person would walk by because you were meant to meet them. Now we have free will. So free will dictate whether we engage or we don't engage or we change whatever the contract was. But I believe that there are some relationships that we have set up, our higher selves have set up to have, because we're trying to have a certain experience here. So there was a time when I didn't understand that, and I beat myself up a little bit for getting into this relationship because I didn't want to be unfaithful to somebody. I didn't want to, be that person. But what I know now is that there was nothing that was going to stop this relationship coming in. And now with hindsight, I see the purpose of why we came together, because the purpose of a twin flame, I believe, is to create something bigger in this world than you could have created on your own. So when you energetically combine your energy with somebody that is a polar opposite of you on a soul level, it allows you to meld your energy together to create something bigger, which is what Mark and I ultimately did, but not really until after he died. However, a twin flame is also a mirror. So if both have not done the work, you'll wind up repelling each other's energy. It used to be, I believe, that twin flames never incarnated in the same lifetime because it was too tumultuous. Now, more and more twin flames, I believe, are allowed to incarnate together. I think one would stay behind and guide the other, but now they're coming together because when both have done the work, they can combine their energy to create something bigger in this world that maybe they plan to create, that's helping with our great awakening that we're going through right now.
Okay. And before, when we were talking off camera, you shared just a little bit about signs, and particularly signs after Mark's death. And I know that you've written a book about this. So tell us, tell us more.
Okay. Mark and I got into this relationship, and I got into it very purposely to just build a friendship and a relationship because my son had started playing guitar, and I wanted my son to get a real live guitar lesson from a rock star maybe the next year when he came to town. And I announced that this was my intention, but there was an unknown magnetic connection between us. And so I wound up in an emotional affair with him for a year. And then by the time I was getting out of my relationship, things were blowing up with this and it just wasn't working out. He lived in a different state. So although we had seen each other a few times and we had this amazing connection, the timing was just not right for us to come together right then. My kids were too little. I needed to get through some things. So I felt like we just pushed the pause button, and I kind of felt like maybe in my 50s or my 40s, when my kids were older and gone, that we would reconvene and come back together. So for 3 years, we didn't have any contact. We hadn't spoken at all. And then one day I was walking around the ponds that I walked every day, and I had this thought that he died. That was an unusual thought because he was 46 years old and healthy as far as I knew. And I just shoved the thought away and continued my walk. But then later on, when I was back at home taking a shower, I think when we're taking a shower, the combination of the water, the repetitious actions, it changes our brainwave and it opens us up sometimes to downloads or messages. And I got a second message, and the second message was that he had died in a plane crash and one of his bandmates were going to call me. Now that thought got my attention because I had grown up flying in small planes. They were safe to me, but he was a smoker. If I were going to have a death scene for him, it would be from lung cancer and smoking, not because he was flying. So I knew this was not my thought. And I was concerned about it, but at the time I was working, I was getting ready to go to an appointment on site at a client, and I was just trying to get ready. But while I was drying my hair, I had this overwhelming urge to stop what I was doing and go find the ring that my great grandmother gave me. And I didn't even know where it was. She had been dead maybe 10 years. I don't even remember wearing it. And I wasn't even sure where it was. But the thought was so overwhelming, I couldn't ignore it. So I stopped drying my hair. I found the ring, I put it on, and I was like, all right, grandma, are you happy now? And I continued getting ready. Fast forward about an hour and a half later, my dad had gone into work that day, and it was the Tuesday after Labor Day weekend, and the CNN ticker said that Mark had been at a concert in Nebraska. He had stepped off the stage, had a massive heart attack, and died. And my dad texted me, and I didn't get the text message. And my mom called me when I was driving, and the phone never rang through my Bluetooth system. And ultimately, my mom left me a message that I saw. And when I saw her message, I knew something was terribly wrong, but I didn't think it had anything to do with anybody other than my dad. And so I uncharacteristically listened to that message, and it was my mom, and she didn't make any sense. She was telling me she was sorry, and I should go home and feel my feelings. And I had no idea what she was talking about. And when I called her, she was the one who actually delivered the news that Mark had died. And I was completely bewildered. Even though I'd gotten those two thoughts earlier, it still didn't really soften the shock and the blow of that being true. And so that was the most difficult experience. I have never cried that hard in my whole life. It was horrible. But within 2 days of that experience of learning he died, I got in my car and I turned it on, and XM Radio's The Bridge was playing on the screen, and the screen said, Jefferson Starship with your love. Now, he was with the band Starship, which has a long lineage of being Jefferson Airplane, Jefferson Starship, and then Starship. And so got my attention, but no sound was coming out of the music. I could push any of the buttons. It would go to AM, FM, it didn't matter. Those songs would play, but the screen stayed frozen with that Jefferson Starship with your love. I wanted to believe it was him, but I'm also pretty skeptical, and I'm kind of like, okay, prove it to me. So I actually waited on hold with XM Radio for 20 minutes and asked them to reset my radio, which they did. They claimed that they did, and it didn't change it. I even turned my car on and off 3 times running different errands. And then when I got to my final destination to see my friend for lunch, I made her come outside, and she saw the screen, and she just waved at it and said, hi, Mark. And when I came out from lunch, it had disappeared. And that is when my life completely changed, and he began bombarding me with signs everywhere I would go. I would walk into a store and a Starship song would play. I would only have a 4 or 5 minute car ride, and the song Miracles, which was my all-time favorite song, and the whole reason I even went to the concert to meet him, would be playing, and it would continue. And so I got a notebook and I began very diligently, as soon as I would have a sign, like within that day, I would write it down, because I knew that over time I would misremember the specific details, and I felt it was really important to preserve the accuracy of these signs for myself. And when I got to the end of 2 years, I had filled an entire notebook with these signs. And then Mark came to me in a dream. It wasn't the first dream that he had come to me in, but this time when he came to me in this dream, it was very short. And he took my hand, and we were walking up this mountain, and he looked at me and he said to me, I'm most proud of our story. And then I woke up, but it was so real. It didn't feel like a dream. Like when I'm talking about it right now, this is, I don't know, maybe like 8 or 9 years ago. I can picture this dream as vividly as if I had had it this morning. And that afternoon, I tried to take a nap and I couldn't sleep. And when I woke up and made myself sit up, all of a sudden this chapter had formed in my mind, and I just dictated it. And a lot of this book that I wind up writing was dictated that way. And so the first part of the book was about Mark and my story. And the second part of the book was a compilation of all the different types of signs he sent me. music signs, signs where he would freeze the electronics somehow, feathers, just all these different things that I would see, license plates. And I documented all these experiences. And the reason I wrote this book is because I feel very strongly that when our loved ones die, they don't leave us. They are around us. They can hear every word that you've ever said. They know how you feel about them because they've already had a life review and they've lived from your perspective the relationship that they had with you. And so they're around you. And if you can pay attention and you can get into the right space, you can see the signs from your own loved ones. And so my book shows you how my relationship was and how the signs worked for me so that you can extrapolate from that how you would connect with your loved one and what the signs might look like for you.
Wow. Okay. So tell us about if a person's missing someone from the other side and they're wanting to connect, tell us what you would tell them.
Okay. So your loved ones are just in a dimension that's different than this, and they're just an energy signature now. One of the things that I feel is that when you are in your deepest moments of grief and despair, like maybe right after you've lost your loved one, I think it's a lot more difficult for them to send you signs because they have to lower their vibration so much to reach yours. So one of the first things that you can do to start to be able to connect with your loved ones is it starts with an intention. So you need to talk to them and you need to tell them that that's what you would like. You would like to see a sign that you cannot erase away through logical thought, to know without a shadow of a doubt that it is them communicating with you in whatever way that is. Don't put any parameters around what you want to see. Just leave it open ended and let them figure out how they can speak to you. It might be through a billboard you see, it might be a license plate, it might be a lyric from a specific song, it might be them turning the light on and off. It could be so many different things. There's no limitation on the other side from spirit because they're just energy beings and they can very easily manipulate what we would think would be difficult to manipulate. They can very easily manipulate the time so that when you're driving, you encounter a car that has a license plate on it, or you are just in the right place to see a magazine cover that has something significant that has a message for you, or maybe you're standing behind somebody in line and there's something on a t-shirt that's specific to your relationship that would alert you that this is a sign for you. So that's the first thing, is intention. And then you have to find a way to raise your vibration so that they don't have to lower theirs so much. And so one of the easiest ways I think to increase your vibration is through gratitude. Because gratitude will put us in a state of love and appreciation, and that's a high level, a high vibrational emotion so that they can more easily reach you. And then you just have to really be open and you have to pay attention. And that's really what I would say.
And when you said now they're an energy signature, what does
Mhm.
that mean?
All right, if we go into quantum physics at a cellular level, at a molecular level, we're energy. There's space, there's very little matter. Almost everything is energy, and energy can neither be created nor destroyed. So when somebody leaves their body, they just change form from this physical incarnation that you're in right now to the energy signature that is the true essence of what they really are as a soul. That's what I mean by that. So it's just flipping a switch. They're just an energy. They're just an energy form now. That's all they are on the other side.
I love that. I was just last week, I was listening to teacher Gigi Young, and one cool thing, and maybe you've heard of this, is she was saying that many times, like she works as a psychic medium, and many times loved ones will actually leave a trail behind when they're passing out of this dimension of almost like little gifts. or little messages or whatever that we will pick up on when the time is right or when our vibration is at the point where we can receive them or look for them and accept them. So that's all the more motivation what you're saying to yeah, to lift our vibration and that intention and really like open our eyes. So
Yeah.
yeah, I love that.
And what's interesting for me is that in the beginning, I would get signs periodically, and I would have to pay a lot of attention. Now I feel like the signs will get my attention. So, for example, I might just be driving on a highway, listening to a podcast, listening to music. I'm not particularly paying attention. And then all of a sudden, I'll feel my attention over here, and I'll look in that lane and there'll be a license plate that has some kind of a message that I can't deny. Like, he has sent me praise at license. He loves to speak in license plates. Can I tell a quick story about one?
Please. Yeah.
Okay. This is one of my favorite examples of how he spoke to me in the very beginning when I was really unsure. Part of losing Mark, part of the difficulty in losing Mark was, remember, I hadn't spoken to him for 3 years. And I had gotten back together with my husband. He was engaged to somebody and he was going to get married in a few months. So he's in another relationship. So in my humanness, I think, well, why would he want to connect with me? We were done. We ended things. We haven't spoken in 3 years and he had moved on. But on a soul level, that's a ludicrous thought because we've been connected for millennia. So of course he would want me to know that he was around. And remember, I said that life review. Most people have had, or a lot of people have had a near-death experience will experience a life review. And one of the aspects of a life review is that you live your life again from your perspective, and then you switch roles and you become the perspective of everybody that you interacted with. So as I'm in my relationship with Mark, as he's had a life review, he has relived from my eyes every emotion about how I felt about him, about where I felt like he hadn't treated me the right way, or he hadn't honored our relationship, or how I felt even after our relationship was over during those 3 years. So there's no aspect of my human experience with him that he does not understand now from a higher vantage point. So of course he's going to want to connect with me. And I think that that's a really good message for everybody that's listening. If you didn't end on what you would consider to be good terms with your loved one, it doesn't matter. To them, they understand exactly why the relationship wasn't in good terms, and they don't have these aspects of where we have revenge or these human emotions. They don't have that. They're in a state of love now, and they only see things through these eyes of love. And so it doesn't matter what you went through with them when they passed. If your relationship wasn't solid, it wasn't strong, they'll still connect with you. So I want you to know that. I think that's really important. So it was maybe a month or so after he had died, and I'm going to my first concert, and I'm a huge concert goer. And of course, we had music in common with each other. And I had gone with my husband that I'd gotten back together with, and we're driving. He's driving, so he's in control of the radio and the driving. And I was talking to Mark in my head, and I was asking Mark if he was with me at this concert, because this is the first concert I've gone to, and he loved music, wondering, would you be with me at the concert? And all of a sudden, we're getting ready to get on the highway, and we pull up behind a car, and the license plate says Soulmate, SOLM8, Illinois license plate. I am dumbfounded because I've just been talking to him. I didn't ask him for a sign. I'm just asking him in my mind, were you there? Did you come with me? Would you have come with me? And I see soulmate, and I immediately know this message is for me. But again, I'm a little bit skeptical because these signs are really new for me at this point in time. And I'm still human thinking, well, we didn't talk for 3 years. Would he really be connecting with me? If it were me driving, I would have stayed right behind that car on the highway, wouldn't have let it out of my sight. But I'm not in control. My husband is driving. And so the car is gone. And I'm just sitting there thinking, and all of a sudden, a Jefferson Starship song comes on the radio. And I look up, and the license plate is now in front of us again. and I wasn't controlling the radio and I wasn't controlling how we were driving. And I knew that I could maybe excuse the license plate by itself, but I could not excuse the timing of that license plate, our relationship, and one of his songs playing on the radio at that exact moment.
Wow.
And I have so many like that where he would send me, he would do multiple things in one iteration so that I wouldn't misunderstand that was him. Another just really super quick one. I was thinking about him. I was very nostalgic. I was walking at these ponds, and his idol was, he loved Van Halen and he loved Eddie Van Halen. It's the whole reason he began playing guitar. And it was his idol, and he would make these amps to have the signature and the sound of Van Halen. So I mean, everything about his life was Van Halen. And I'm walking in these ponds, and I am just walking, and all of a sudden these two people are sitting on a bench, and I pass them, and they're riding their bikes, and they get up off the bench, they get on their bikes, and they go past me, and he's wearing a vintage t-shirt that says Van Halen on it. And I'm like, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. And I can't get my camera out quick enough. So I have to start running to catch him. And as I run and catch him to get this picture, the song Miracles begins playing on my music and my headset as I'm walking. Like, I can't make this stuff up. And the timing of it, I was playing random from my like 1,500 downloaded songs. These are the iPods, by the way, back in the day where you didn't have the control like you do now. And that's the song that came on. So
Oh, wow. Thank you so much. Now, would you say, just looking back, because obviously there was a time in your life before this where you were not experiencing signs at all. Did you change anything in your life to kind of
yeah.
be the place where you could?
Okay, that's a phenomenal question, because when Mark died, even though I was already on this spiritual journey, like I said, I was reading these Edgar Casey books and these Brian Weiss, and I was learning about past lives and different incarnations we might have and how the soul works. And I was reading all these different books and starting to fill my library. When Mark died, I went into like a deep dive. I ordered every medium I ever heard of. I ordered their book because now I want to connect to the other side and how this works. And I became a student of signs. So I'm reading everything I can think of. I think I filled my library with probably 20 or 30 different medium books. Like one medium would write like 5 books. I'd get all of them, and I would read everything super fast. I was probably consuming 2 or 3 books a week. I would stay up till 2 or 3 in the morning. I would be fully awake and like engaged in reading all of these things because I was searching and I was thirsty for this knowledge, because this was going to help connect me to my love and to understand things more. So yes, and then I had a couple of medium readings where the one message that I really needed to hear from Mark was that he still loved me. Because again, that time really messed me up, and him being in another relationship and me being in another relationship really played with my mental thoughts about what I would think was possible versus not possible. In my heart, I knew he loved me and would connect with me, but my brain wanted to tell me other stories, as we often do. And so I found a couple of mediums, and then all of a sudden I had lined up two different mediums, and they both canceled me. And I was left with no medium readings. And I really thought I was going to connect and get my answers. Like, I did think things had gotten moved. One had gotten canceled 3 times. The other one, her dad died and she canceled my reading like the day of the reading. And a friend randomly out of the blue called me and said, hey, I have another friend who's gone to this energy healer. You should go talk to this energy healer. I'm like, I don't want an energy healer. I want a medium. But I reluctantly went, and it wound up being on the same time and date that my original reading was supposed to be. And I recorded the session. And she told me in that session that one of the first things she said to me was that he's coming through and telling you how much he loves you. And then I was able to take that recording and play it over and over again. And that took me on this journey of creating a body of 400 paintings with these spiritual messages that I know that Mark helped me create and put out in the world, that went to like millions of people to help them with their losses.
Oh, wow. Okay. So back to the concept of twin flames. Earlier, you said something like two people that their bodies come together to meet in this life to create something beyond. So that just kind of like follows through with some of what, you know, you guys, if you hadn't have come together, sounds like would have
Yes.
created.
Yes. Okay. That's a really, really observant of you, because I do believe that that was our contract. So, in order for Mark and I to really do our true work, he had to come here. We had to have this connection that was beyond anything I'd ever experienced before, that led me to want to connect even more after he died. And as a result of that, this recording had me paint this painting into existence. And then every day when I would go on a walk, I would see in my mind's eye a heart flying with a banner, and I'd go home and jot it on a piece of paper. And I had not painted. I'm not a trained artist. I'd really taken I'd taken one art class as an adult, and all they really did was teach you how to mix colors. That was all I did. And I decided that I was going to paint these paintings, and I decided to start with these teeny tiny canvases, and I was going to paint 40 paintings in 40 days. Don't ask me why, like 50 sounded like too many, 30 didn't sound like enough. And so every night after the kids went to bed, I would get my paints and I would take one of these drawings that I had seen in my mind during the day, and I would just paint it. And I would write these little soul whispers of like little 3 sentences that would go with the painting. And then I would take a picture of it and I would text it to about 20 people, different friends, my mom, my sister, that wanted to see it. And then as I was getting closer to that 40th painting, I started doing larger and larger canvases. I worked my way up to like 8x10 and 9x12 canvases. So they were taking me a little bit longer, but I was learning, I was learning through them. And I started counting, and I realized that the 40th painting was going to land on Mark's birthday. I had not planned that. And that was when I knew beyond a shadow of a doubt that he was behind what we were creating. And ultimately, I took it and I posted on Facebook, because my friends were like, you should share this. We really love it. Because when I stopped with the 40th painting, I didn't paint for a while. And then they would be like, where's our paintings? We need our fix. And so I began painting regularly, and I would paint about 100 paintings a year. I did this for 4 years in a row. And I started this Facebook page, and I grew it to like 170,000 followers. The messages went all around the world, but then I realized Facebook was not the platform for me, and I exited and just kind of let that go, and other things took over.
Oh, wow. Okay, very cool. Is there anything else that you want to share with us about signs before we go on to something else?
I'm just going to say what I said before, and that is that your loved ones do not die. They are a thought away. You can connect with them anytime you want. There are no limits in the relationship that you can have with them, even though they are not physically here anymore. They love you. They hear every word you've ever said to them, and they want to let you know that they know what's going on in your life. And all you have to do is be open and ask for them to show you signs. That's it. It's really that simple.
Okay. Now, one thing that you brought up in another conversation we had was that you've had many out of body experiences with the shamanic use of 5-MeO DMT.
Yeah.
So, yeah, first, actually, what is 5-MeO?
Okay. So DMT is the most powerful psychedelic on the planet. And it comes in a couple of different forms. You might have heard of the term ayahuasca. Ayahuasca is a jungle plant. It's two plants. It's a vine and a woody plant that's combined together. And you have to use two of them because one of the plants will make you feel very, very ill. I think it's almost like poisonous if you don't combine these two together, but it's a long acting DMT. So it's a very powerful psychedelic. They make it into a tea, they boil it down, you drink it, and you have a very long experience, like a 6 or so hour experience. 5-MeO DMT is a very short acting DMT, and it is derived using the Sonoran desert toad. It excretes a poison. It's a protection for itself, and they catch it kind of like you would milk the venom from a snake so it doesn't hurt the toad at all. And they catch it and they dry it on a slide. It turns into a crystal, and then you take a very, very small dose that's usually, I mean, it could be 20 milligrams up to like 70 milligrams, and they put it in a vial and they heat it and it turns into a vapor and you inhale it, and that DMT releases you from your body. So there's a man named Dr. Rick Straussman, and he wrote a book about DMT and he calls it the God molecule. And he did a lot of studies. He used synthetic DMT and then different derivatives of it. And what they've studied and what they understand about the brain is that they believe that the pineal gland, which is very deep inside the brain, releases DMT. They think that you release DMT a very, very microscopic amount every night when you sleep and you dream, because it releases your body to go to the astral plane and travel, to communicate with your spirit guides, to commune with your higher self and come back. They also believe that DMT is released when you're born, so soul enters the body, and when you die, soul leaves the body, or when somebody has a very traumatic experience, like a near-death experience, and their soul leaves the body. So that's what that's doing. So it's inducing a near-death like experience. For everybody, it's different. If you watch videos about this on YouTube, you'll see a lot of people who have an experience and they just seem like they're out of their mind, delirious, like excessively happy, writhing around. And that's really weird. And I've never experienced DMT that way. For me, in all but two of my journeys, I have completely left my body. I am not there. These are very sacred journeys. I do this with a shaman. So the shaman is watching over my body and protecting me while I'm not in it. But when I take the inhale of CMT, I am gone within a few seconds, and I am gone and my body lays there very still. I'm breathing. I'm still tethered probably by the silver cord that they talk about that tethers our soul to our incarnation. Because I think if that's cut, I think you do truly die, but you're out of your body. And for me, I'm out of my body for about 20 minutes, and then I come back and I feel very different for about 30 minutes, and about 90 minutes later I am completely and utterly normal. I can drive. There's no way that you can overdose on this, and you can't become addicted to it because your brain naturally produces it.
Okay. Okay, cool. Yeah, I didn't know all that. That's new for me.
I did. Well, you know what? I have to say, Amanda, like, look, my background, this is for people that knew me, high school, college, 20s, 30s, 40s would probably be shocked that I'm doing anything like this. Like, I am the person was like, I'm never trying any drugs. I don't drink to get drunk. Like, I'm a super control freak about like wanting to be in control of what happens in my body. So that's why I don't like to even be drunk. So for me to have done something like this was a big deal. And the reason I got involved in anything psychedelic is because I was in a relationship with a man who had served in Desert Storm and he had PTSD. And he went to a talk at a university with two veterans, a husband and wife, who were talking about how they had used ayahuasca and it had completely cured, in one of them one treatment, in the other one I think 3 or 4 treatments, completely cured their PTSD. And he wanted an opportunity to mitigate any, if he could, of his PTSD. And so he sought out ayahuasca and San Pedro and psilocybin. And when he tried 5-MeO DMT, I don't know what it was about that, but I was instantly, at the moment he began talking about it, I knew I had to do this. Like, this was my calling. I was never called to ayahuasca. Psilocybin has been great in a few instances, but it's very long acting, so that's not super comfortable for me. But 5-MeO DMT just really spoke to me. And this is these are used for soul growth. These are not recreation. This is about setting and intention. And I take this super, super seriously. There are a lot of people who will talk about this. I remember Mike Tyson in the very beginning did one of these journeys and it completely changed everything. He came back and was a completely different person after he did this. So, it has the ability to dissolve your ego in certain ways. And I believe you really have to do a lot of work on yourself and be very ready for something like this. This is not something that you just jump into. I did a ton of research first. So, and I'm not encouraging people to do this or to try it. I'm just sharing my experience because I know that there are a lot of people who are looking for something. And just through my experience, even without doing it, maybe this helps them in some way.
Okay. And yeah, I totally want to piggyback on that because sometimes I hear people say or read comments on other videos where people are talking about sacred use of psychedelics. Um, oh, that wasn't a real experience because you're just escaping using drugs. And my own experience using ayahuasca is that it's anything but an escape. It's a facing of yourself in many ways, whatever your soul needs you to see. My experience using alcohol, marijuana, um, these kind of things always would numb me to some degree, cause me to just feel good and not think about difficult things. But the ayahuasca and the psilocybin, on the other hand, always caused me to face things that I wasn't courageous enough to face in regular life or things that I was in denial about. And so, to anyone who thinks it's just like a regular drug, these are actually very powerful medicines causing us to face things that are very difficult. So, yeah, I'm with you
I
on that.
second that. I second that.
Now, I would love for you to share whatever kind of just comes into your awareness as far as some of your most powerful out of body experiences with this medicine. Tell us about
Okay. So I'll talk about the first one because the first one, you don't know what to expect. I greatly anticipated this. I was very, very excited about it. And um, I went to the place to have the experience. We set the intention, and the intention was really just to experience whatever I needed to know. Show me whatever I need to know. So I inhaled this medication, and immediately what I saw was a grid-like pattern in front of me. Like I could see everything that was in for the wall that was in front of me and everything that was on the wall, but it was almost like it became a grid, and I could almost see like the matrix behind what it really was. It wasn't the real. It was like an illusion of what was really in front of me. And it felt like that was more real than what I was seeing as the solid wall. And then I'm immediately out of my body and I am the other side and I am my soul and I expand exponentially. Like I can't, it's really hard. These experiences are ineffable. I don't have a great use of human words to use to describe these. These are much like when I interview the people who've had near-death experiences on my channel, and they say the same thing over and over and over again. I think I've interviewed like 80 of these people who have had near-death experiences, and it's always the same thing. It's so hard to use these human words, but I'm going to do my best to describe what I looked like and what I felt like. I became a vibration when I looked with the eyes that I had on the other side. I didn't have anything that was human looking. So it's not like I saw skin or an arm. What I saw was a grid pattern and a non-distinct shape. And I was light, and the light had an iridescence to it and kind of colors that I wouldn't necessarily be able to describe or that I've seen here on this earth. And it's just an iridescence and it's an expansion. And I had this feeling of being very, very large, much larger than the human body. But the vibration is really what struck me the most because the vibration was like if you took the most powerful vibration I can think of is like a jackhammer, but made that the smoothness of a hummingbird wing, but the power of the jackhammer. And at the same time, when you see a hummingbird wing and it looks like it's moving so fast, like multiply that by 1,000,000, because it's like this vibration that it's undulates on itself, like over and over and over again. And that is like the natural state of being. And then it would be like if I heard the most beautiful musical note that I've ever heard, it would be that, but it would be strung out into infinity. Like it wouldn't have an end to it. And so it's this massive expansionness and this vibration and this iridescent light and this sound that's just beauty. And then the overwhelming feeling of having like love. Where I was in that place was take the thing that you've loved the most, your child, your lover, a pet, and then multiply that by 1,000,000. And it doesn't even begin to touch the way that love feels like on the other side, because love isn't a thing. Love is a state of being. That's the hardest thing to really get across to people as I've had these experiences on the other side. It's not like it's this outside of me. It's I become a state of being that is this, which is just so hard to put into words. But it was love and peace. And I immediately knew that there was nothing on the other side except that love, that everything that was there was love. There was nothing that could creep in that could not be of that light and of that love. There couldn't be anything else. There was no polar opposite. Like if you say good, bad, there was nothing that you could associate with the word bad that could exist in that place. And so I felt like I was there for seconds. It didn't feel like very long, although on the human side, she said I was completely out of my body and completely still for 20 minutes, but it felt like seconds. And then all of a sudden, I'm back in my body and I have to contract to come back into my body. And my immediate reaction was, no, I don't want to come back in. I don't want to be this anymore. It's like the cosmic joke. You were on the other side and you were everything in expansiveness and love. And now you have to fit yourself back in. And it felt completely uncomfortable. And I felt immediately sad and began bawling. So I came back to like sobbing that I had to come back as this. Luckily, and I think that this was preordained for me, the person who was supposed to do their journey after me had on the last minute called and canceled. And as I'm coming back online, as I'm like sobbing and having this experience and coming back, I was given a thought that I was to ask if I could do this again. And I asked my shaman and she let me. So as soon as I came back and I felt like I was ready, I sat up, she heated up the medication again. It turned into a vapor. I inhaled it and I went right back into the other side and went right back into my soul again. And when I was my soul in that place, I now felt a light that I knew was source. And the light communicated something to me, but I was not allowed to bring that thought and that memory back. So I don't have that memory, but I know that there was a communication. And this time when I came back completely laughing, like hysterically laughing, because now I understood like the polarity of those two situations where I felt so bad coming back into the human body, but now it just felt like a joke. Like what we are on a human level seems so simplistic and simple compared to the complexity of what we are on a soul level. So on the soul level, we are this enormous power. We are nothing but love and bliss and peace. And there's nothing to worry about. There's nothing that we lack on that other side in that place. And this from a soul perspective is just a little simple game that we come to play. And I'm saying that, and I don't mean to trivialize anybody, because I know these lives from my human perspective can be very, very difficult. We experience loss and profound sadness and great joy and all of these emotions and these experiences that we have here. But on a soul level, this is like a child's game compared to what we are and the power of what we are. And I'm talking about every single person listening. Yes, you are an immensely powerful soul, and you just don't remember who you are.
Oh, what you said about there's nothing bad, whatever you said. There's nothing bad, nothing horrible, nothing but love could ever get here. That is really how my own near-death experience was. Like always in life, there's always the possibility of like someone barging through the door or you getting a phone
Yeah.
call that you don't want to get or but can you just go back a little bit and tell us a bit about that moment?
So it's not just been that one experience that I have felt that. I have had 18 of these profound experiences. And when I do them, I usually do them in twos or threes. Only on a couple of occasions have I ever done it as a single instance. And so what happens to me is every time I go back in, I feel like usually that second experience is expanded. And if I go in a third time, it's expanded even more. And there has never been a time that I have gone to the other side where I have not had that feeling. We are complete love. We are in a state of peace and love. There is no evil. There is no bad. There is no darkness. There is nothing that could ever harm you on a soul level. And there's nothing that can encroach in that space of light and love that is where source exists. And if well, I was shown in one of my experiences that there was actually nothing outside of source, which is really hard to imagine. The only thing I can say, I don't know why I give this example, but it just seems to make sense to me. Like if source God was a whale, everything is in the whale, the ocean, everything. There's nothing that's outside of that container. There's nothing. So if we're talking about universe or universes, dimension, dimensions, it's all encased inside of source. And that's why there's nothing that can get into that space inside there of light. There's nothing inside there that exists except for that love. At least that's what I've experienced in all of my experiences.
Yeah, yeah, I definitely hear what you're saying. I'm curious, how has your life changed since doing these experiences with DMT?
I think the better question would be like, how has your life not changed after it? Because it changes everything. It is essentially having a near-death experience. I mean, I don't care what anybody says. Like, I know what I am on a soul level. I know what we all are. And the power that you are on a soul level is what my minuscule human mind would have thought was God or source. That's actually what you are. Whatever you can conceive that you would think God is actually what you are. What source is, the power of source, we don't have the framework, we don't have the ability to understand that from this human perspective in this incarnation with the mind that we have. We can't. We can't get there. But what you think of that is actually you. So these experiences have shown me over and over and over again that this is what we are.
And what would you say in your regular life, what has changed the most before and after?
Okay, so before it was faith, that something existed that I just knew, I knew I had my experiences with Mark. I knew that those were real. I knew that he was still here. So I knew that on every level, every part of my heart believed that there was a bigger power, a source, a God outside of this. Now it's not just faith, it's experience that has allowed me. I don't know why I've been allowed to experience what my soul is. I've been told what my purpose is here, and I think that that's has something to do with why I've been allowed to see, to peek behind the curtain to see what we are, because it's helping me with what I came here to do, with the work I came here to do. So that those experiences begin to then lighten my path here during this earthly incarnation to understand that you can never be harmed. Death is not the end. We're these powerful souls. We have eternity when we're on the other side. And so when things get hard here, as they often do, and believe me, I am not immune from the hardships that we experience. I still have all of my human emotions. I still feel terrible when something bad happens. I feel bad when I hurt somebody's feelings. I feel bad when something happens to somebody. I mean, I have all of those feelings and all of those experiences, but I think it gives me a different perspective, because as bad as those feelings get when something happens, I also know that on a soul level, I have probably put that into my path to experience it, because it's helping me refine something on my soul level that I don't understand that I'm trying to refine. And so it takes a little bit of the sting, it takes a little bit of the harshness away from those experiences, because I can get to a place mentally where I can say, as bad as I feel this is, there's a purpose in it. There's no accident to why these things have happened, why these experiences happen to you, to me. There's nobody to blame, because I know that they've been set up for a purpose bigger than I might understand right now. And so that helps me to feel better, maybe to get over things faster than I would have before I had those experiences. That's probably the biggest thing.
Okay. And yeah, actually, I wanted to ask you about just the act of just surrendering. Has that changed? Have you become someone who surrenders more?
That's a really great question. You know what, Amanda? I did a video. I did this after I did a really profound journey on the winter solstice of 2020. I don't know why I was called to do it on this day. And I had paid for three. I had this intention to go in and have three of these journeys. And when I went in, I had the largest journey that I've ever had. And it was so profound, because I had an experience directly with Source, where Source was across the cosmos, moved towards me. I moved towards Source at an equal speed. We combined. I was engulfed by Source, and I was reminded what my purpose was and what I was supposed to come back here to do. And so in having that experience and coming back and understanding what my soul's purpose was, I created this series of these videos. And it was like within 2 days, I got a download, and so Source said, okay, it's time. You have to do what you came here to do. And then 2 days later, I get this outline. And I created these 63 videos called Uncover Your Soul's Purpose, What You Don't Know Is Holding You Back. And within those series of videos, I created a video that, tell me the question you asked me again, which it was a specific one.
Surrender.
Surrender. So I created this video that was called Non-Attachment. And in my series, I talk in that video about how of all of the things that I've created, all of these things that I'm trying to help people to understand about who they are and the power of their soul, this for me personally has been the number one most difficult thing to practice, to put into practice. So non-attachment doesn't mean you don't care about something. Non-attachment is this place that you can get when you evaluate something that's happened in your life, and instead of attaching, I'm pissed about this makes me feel this way, I want revenge for this, you become unattached with the outcome because you understand that there's something bigger that you don't get in this moment. And you instead let that go and either get to a place of forgiveness about it or get to a place where you can not let it hang on and really affect everything about your vibration, lower your vibration, your interactions with other people. So it's a very, very difficult. There was somebody wrote the book, The Untethered Soul. Can't think of the author's name, but The Untethered Soul, the entire book is about how he learned to have non-attachment. And when I read it, I was like, oh my God, like this is, I'm in the 101 section and he's in like the master's section. Like it's a tough one. How have you done it?
Oh my God. Well, with my near-death experience, it was like, okay, with my near-death experience for me, it was so fulfilling and so connecting all of these kind of like disconnected pieces of myself where I was like, okay, this is true inner outer connection with the universe, with myself, with God in this very temporary moment. And then when I got back here, it was very contrasting. So my experience now, and this sounds worse than it is, but bear with me. My experience now is like, when you're a kid and you eat like the dollar store chocolate and it's like, oh, this is so good. Yeah, yeah, yeah. But then like you get a bit older and you eat like some Swiss chocolate and you never eat dollar store chocolate after that because it's just like,
Yep,
so
yep,
everything on earth when I first came back from my near death experience was so flat, but it wasn't flat like it was unenjoyable or anything. Like I still enjoy absolutely everything in physical reality and I'm grateful for it. And I can sometimes like get more out of it than I could before because my senses are heightened.
it was just
But
dollar store chocolate.
like yeah. But what happened was like I couldn't nothing compared. Nothing. Like no drugs, no alcohol, no sex, nothing compared to that state that I found myself in my near death experience of
Yes,
connection with the present.
yes,
So, because that slowly and continues to slowly was integrating into my experience, yes, pain is there. Yes, disappointment's there. Yes, bad health things are there. But what's underlying it is that full connection with source. So the other stuff, it was like, oh, my attachment to this or that can come and go. I don't really care because I have inside of me the home that I've been looking for. Didn't realize I was looking for my whole life. So like I can take or leave your Lindt chocolate. I can take and leave whatever. It's like I don't even care. But I am enjoying it and appreciating it more than I ever have. So I know that doesn't make a ton of sense, but I guess the contrast for me personally, that's yeah,
no,
help
that
has
makes a lot of sense. Another thing that happened to me is I became much less of a things and a material person after those experiences. Like things actually, when I just had a birthday and I get birthday presents, and it actually makes me feel the opposite of happy when somebody gives me a thing that I have to do something with. I don't want things. I don't, the things come with an energy that almost feels like it weighs me down. And so I don't want the things. And I'm not saying like I like to have the cute clothes or I'll, buy like a cute necklace or something like that. But what I really enjoy are consumable things. Like I would rather have a candle or some flowers, not something that I have to find a place to put it and take care of it. Like the more I go through these experiences, the less things I want. And that's funny because when I interviewed you on my channel about your near death experience, one of the things that struck me the most is how you went from you had this house and you had like all these things to all of a sudden you're like, yeah, I think I'm going to sell this whole room full of stuff. And then you're like, that feels good. Let's sell the rest of it. And then the next thing you know, you're living out of a suitcase, but then you're really and truly free.
I love what you just said about the vibration, the heaviness of it, because you put into better words than I could of why I kept downsizing and minimalizing. It literally had the feeling of heaviness. And you know what's actually, I'm kind of going backwards in time. After my near death experience, soon after, I had my first psilocybin journey. I think I
Mm.
only done three. It wasn't really my thing. But after a psilocybin journey, I had this kind of like a new personal meter for like about 24 hours, 48 hours, where I could walk around my house and I could look at an object and I would immediately feel the vibration, the lightness or the heaviness or the joy in my body. So if I looked at a house plant, I was like, this is just for 24 hours. I just like my heart just lit up and I couldn't stop staring at it. And then I would look at like some electronics made in China and I'd get nauseous. So I started walking around my house and like kind of taking note of what was happening to my body when I focused on different things. And that's when I first started to realize, oh, things have different vibrations. And then I guess part of that just for me anyway, it just stuck because the heaviness, like some things, still gave a heavy vibration.
You just gave me a total aha moment. I just realized why when somebody gives me a gift and it is again like a China thing versus somebody gave me something that they made, like my daughter has these little statues that she made in high school out of clay. They're cute, but nobody else looking at them would go, I love that. I cannot get rid of it. There's like, I will have them the rest of my life. They will be out and I get so much joy from them. It's because her vibration in making them and knowing that she was going to make them and give them to me are in that. Oh my gosh, Amanda, that is exactly what it is because I'm always way more attached to like this hope chest that my great grandfather gave me than I am to some $5,000 necklace that somebody else gave me. And nobody gave me a $5,000 necklace. I'm just making up an example. But seriously, I'm way more connected to those things. Like my daughter-in-law made me this little bucket of these hearts, and they're just crocheted little hearts. And she said each one of them was like, remember the family, and she made one for Mark. And I have them sitting where I can see them at my desk. I can see them right now, and they're sitting there, and they're cute, but it's not like doesn't go with the rest of the decor of my house. But there's something that like energetically that makes me want to keep that.
You just made me think of something else. When you're
I
talking about
love this.
vibration, I don't know, it just popped in my head. I was at a psilocybin journey and I was at it was in the house of another couple. There was a group of us. And when we were kind of like integrating and having conversation the next morning, one of the guys said that when he went in the kitchen to this big water jug near the end of the ceremony to get water, um, well, this water jug had all these little stickers on it, like love, happiness, gratitude, or whatever. 'Cause they were like charging their water with the words, right? But he couldn't really even see what the word said. He was still like, from the psilocybin. But what he did say was each of the different words was glowing at a different brightness. They were each glowing at a different brightness. And the words that were like of the highest vibration, they were the ones that were just like, they were like 3D jumping out at him. And so, we talk about like blessing our food or like putting an intention, a good word towards someone or the water. It's really real.
Oh, yes, I agree. Yeah, I love that. I love an illustration like that. I've never heard anybody say anything like that, but it makes complete sense to me.
Oh, wow. Is there anything that's kind of like popping in your mind? Anything else you wanted to share about any of your journeys?
No, well, I guess since you brought up psilocybin, I want to speak about that for a moment. So I think that if somebody is drawn to these, and you'll know what I'm talking about if you're one of the people that's drawn to something like this, to these medicines, you will feel this like there's nobody who should ever say you should do XYZ. You should always feel drawn to something. And these these DMT journeys are big And so if you're feeling a little bit drawn, my only suggestion would be that you start with something like psilocybin. It's legal almost everywhere. It's legal a lot of places now, and it's just becoming so much more acceptable. By the time this video lives into perpetuity, it's probably legal everywhere, and so it's probably 5-MeO DMT and some of these other things. But I think it's a lot easier place to start. It's a lot easier to get a hold of. But again, you need to hold an intention of set and setting. You need to, sage yourself, sage your area, and just have an intention that only love and light can be in your place. And have an experience like that first, maybe before you go into something like a DMT. I did that. I had two San Pedro experiences. I'm not drawn to San Pedro personally, just really makes me have a big stomach ache. And I've done several of the psilocybin ones before I did the 5-MeO DMT. And I'm really glad I did it in that order. And so that's just the only caveat I would have. And I would like to mention, if you don't mind, that if you go on my website, which is lauriemajka.com, I have a retreat section, and I live in Arizona, and I have a beautiful retreat that I'm going to be offering this fall in 2024 September on the autumnal equinox. So September, I think it's the 20th, 23rd, 21st, 22nd, 23rd, something like that. It's a Friday through a Monday. But if you have an interest in one of these types of retreats, you can go and check that out, and then you can contact me and I can give you more information about it.
Oh yes, thank you. And you have a shaman that works with you on the retreats too, right?
Yes. Yeah. She comes in and does it. So, yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. That's the
Yeah,
one
that's
that I've been using. It's the only one that I have used for these forever.
yeah. And again, just kind of jumping on off the back of what you said, feeling good and feeling confident about the guide, the shaman that's holding the ceremony. There can't be enough said about that. I hear stories all the time from people who went and they didn't feel really confident and safe. They didn't ask a lot of questions before they went, and they thought, I'm just going to go anyway and hope for the best. And their experience was not as safe and secure for them, and that caused them, just a difficult time. So if
I'm glad
anybody,
you said that, Amanda, because that's a big reason why I wanted to do this. I know that there are people who are really right now waking up. They're looking for some bigger answers. They want to do some connecting. And most of the time when you do these things, you have to leave the country. And I wanted to create a place where the set and setting is very safe. And so the shaman that I work with, she's a death doula. So one of the things that she does is she'll work with people who are in stage 4 cancer, and she will give them 3 different small to larger size doses to help them have an experience so that they are not afraid of what is coming. And she has so much experience. She has trauma experience. So I think all of those things are really important to consider.
wow, wow, thank you so much for being here and yeah, sharing a little bit about your big journey. And yeah, anything else you want to share before we take off?
No, I'm just so great. I'm so grateful to everything that you're doing to help raise the collective consciousness, to help wake people up. I just want everybody to know that you are more powerful than you can even imagine, and that you got this. Like, we're the daredevil souls, the ones who come here to choose a human incarnation. Like, this is not easy. It's not easy for us to be separate from everything that is. It's not easy for us to forget the true power and love and beauty that we are. And so, any way that you can connect to that through yourself, through nature, through watching and listening to stories like this, I like to connect to these things by listening to people who've had near death experiences, because it raises my vibration when I listen to them. So all those things that you can do help you awaken and empower and raise your own vibration, because your ripple effect is so needed in this world. So I thank everybody so much for taking the time to watch a talk like this.
Oh, awesome. Okay, well, I think that's everything. And guys, definitely check out Laurie's website. We'll put it in the description. And yeah, if I was in the US, I would love to join you for your retreat.
I know, I wish you were closer.
You never know.
We'd
Okay.
be hanging out.
Thanks, Lori. Bye bye.